Hey romance writers, it is Jenna Harte with Write With Heart, and today we're going to be talking about romance beat sheets for swoon-worthy emotional stories. Now I've heard a lot of people say, how hard can writing a romance be? Essentially, it's boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy wins girl back. But that's not really true. First of all, it's not always boy meets girl. The leads aren't always a boy and a girl. And they're not always human. Second, there's way much more going on in a romance than simply meeting, losing, and reconciling. Writing a romance that readers really enjoy involves three important things. One is characters that readers can root for. Two is conflicts and stakes that readers can believe. And three, a plot that takes readers on an emotional ride. So how does a writer achieve all that? Well, from the plot perspective, it starts by expanding that meet, lose, love idea into plot points, sometimes referred to as beats. Now, I can hear all those pantsters out there saying, but Jenna, I don't plot. And you know what? I get it. I understand. I actually am a pantster by nature myself. But even as a pantster, your story needs to hit certain beats in order to fit within the romance genre. Now, when it comes to plot beat sheets, there are so many of them. We've got the 3-act structure. We've got the hero's journey. We've got Save the Cat. When it comes to romance, there's a couple really good ones as well, including Jamie Gold's and Gwen Hayes's Romancing the Beat. And I'll have links for more information about those in the description below. What you need to do is find the romance outline or beat sheet that makes the most sense to you and helps you in developing your story. And in fact, you can adapt beat sheets into something that makes sense to you, which is exactly what I did. Now, I'm going to share with you the outline and plot beats that I like to use, but I want you to note that this is basically for a regular romance. It can be contemporary and historical, but it's just a regular romance. If you're writing a romantic suspense or mystery or romantic fantasy, you would need to include elements of those beat sheets in with your romance beat sheet as well. If you're writing a romantic fantasy, you may prefer to use the plot outline hero's journey. But if your book is a romance, first and foremost, you also need to make sure that you have the romantic beats included in the hero's journey plot outline. Now, before I go over the plot beats specifically, I do want to remind you that before plotting, you need to have some basic understandings about your characters because various plot points rely on different aspects of your characters. The most important thing that you need to know before you begin plotting are your characters' goals and conflicts. It also doesn't hurt to have some knowledge about their backstories, their personalities, and motivations. Okay, so let's start plotting a romance novel. So today I'm going to share with you the Write With Heart romance writing beat sheet, and this is what I use when I am plotting a straightforward romance. Now, if you spend any time looking at plot outlines and beat sheets, you'll notice that most of them have similar beats, but with different names. Mine is no different. I have changed the names to some of my beats so that they make more sense to me on the purpose that they serve. You can totally do the same. Now, as you can see, I use a basic 3-act structure, and I do like to have the visual of it as well as a written version of it. And if you would like to download a copy of this as well as the rest of my romance plot points, I will have a link in the description below where you can grab a copy of this. Now, it all starts with Act 1, which is the setup for the romance. And the first plot beat is the opening, which is where we meet our protagonists. Now, the opening is generally the start of a normal day that is about to be turned upside down. Your opening should include a few bits about our protagonists that set up their goals and hints at some of the inner conflicts we're going to experience during the course of the story. So after our opening and the introduction to our protagonist is the inciting event, or sometimes called meet cute, where our couple meets each other on the page for the first time. Now, if the characters already know each other, for example, maybe they're friends or maybe they work together, there needs to be something different about this meeting in the meet cute that is different from their previous meetings, or is a build-up from previous meetings. An example of this is in The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, where Lucy and Josh have been hating each other from their desks for some time. That is the opening of the book. However, the inciting event is when their bosses tell them about a new position that only one of them will be able to get. Okay, the next plot beat is resistance, and the first response to the inciting event is nearly always resistance or a butting of heads between the love interests. It's important to note that this resistance doesn't always come from dislike. For example, in a friends to lovers situation, often the resistance is trying to avoid revealing their true feelings. It's important to note that this resistant response is rooted in their goals and/or their inner conflicts. Oftentimes, there is an attempt to avoid the other person, which now brings us to the next beat. Plot beat, stuck together, or new path. This plot beat of stuck together is the end of Act 1, and it ends with our lovebirds without a choice or having to reluctantly agree to a situation that continues to put them together. Now, in some of these situations, they can be stuck together without much choice, like being in a blizzard in a cabin or stuck in an elevator. But they can also be stuck together just by their situations, for example, working at the same company or living in the same building. Situations like a fake relationship or temporary partnership would be examples of having a reluctant agreement to be stuck together. This beat is really important to the story because our lovebirds need to be around each other in order to fall in love. And particularly if they are resistant to each other, the instinct would be to stay away from each other. But of course that can't happen. So this stuck together beat is crucial. Now, strangely enough, when I first wrote this post for Write With Heart, I had just read Red, White, and Royal Blue, and now here I am doing the video and the movie. Red, White, and Royal Blue has just come out. This book is by Casey McQuiston, and it has a really good example of being stuck together because Alex's mother, who's the President of the United States, coerces him to spend time with Henry, who's a Prince of England, to fix an embarrassing situation that Alex created at Henry's brother's wedding. So this is the stuck together moment. Without their parents forcing them to spend time together to fake a friendship, the whole book doesn't happen. The other thing that needs to happen, if it hasn't happened already, is that this scene should identify the external conflicts as well. These are the things that is outside of them that would prevent them from reaching their goal or for reaching their happily ever after. So now we've reached Act 2, which is basically them falling in and then out of love. Now the first plot beat in Act 2 is fighting attraction, where our lovebirds enter their stuck together phase, fully intended to keep their walls up and not giving in to the attraction. They remain focused on their goals and not letting the other person get in their way. But even if our lovebirds are getting along, like in Friends to Lovers, this time together shifts their feelings or heightens it, particularly in the case of unrequited love. Note that unless you're writing a sweet romance, that kissing and even intimate encounters may have already occurred by the time we get to this place in the book. But it is in this place where they've pretty much given up on resisting. The next plot beat is technically called a pinch point, but I love to call it uh-oh, because this is the situation in which the antagonist or conflict appears to remind our lovebirds what's at stake. This first uh-oh is like a tap on the shoulder, reminding one or both of them of what could go wrong. So our next plot beat is imagining the happily ever after. This is the midpoint of the book, and it's the place where, despite the uh-oh they had recently, the characters are still drawing ever closer together. Now at this point, the couple believes they can overcome their conflicts and all the problems, but they have not grown yet. So they are susceptible to their inner demons or their inner conflicts and the antagonist, which of course will be showing up not long from now. The next plot beat is happily ever after within reach, and this is basically a false honeymoon phase. Everything seems to be going well, but the characters haven't dealt with the issues that can threaten their relationship. Now, a beat ago, our lovebirds are thinking impossibilities, but at this next beat, creeping doubt, their personal fears and conflicts are starting to create doubts in their feelings for the other person or how the other person feels about them. At this beat, fears and inner conflicts cause the characters to slow down a little bit. The next plot beat, we have uh-oh, or pinch point 2, which is basically a whack on the head compared to the tap on the shoulder we had before. And again, it's reminding our couple of everything they can lose by abandoning their goal. Now, our first uh-oh caused some hesitation, but this one really makes them stop in their tracks and rethink the situation and what they're willing to risk. It's important to remember that they have not done the personal growing that they need to do, so their thinking around this beat tends to be focused on their fears. So after our second uh-oh point, we have the next plot point of retreat, which is where one character, or maybe both, begins to pull away from the other. They make the decision that they don't want to risk their heart and their goal, and they decide to choose to focus on their goal instead. Now, the other character may notice this distance from the person they've been falling for, and they may pull away as well. And now we get to the black moment, which in my mind is one of the most important beats in a romance. This is where the crap hits the fan and everything that could go wrong does go wrong. Done well, the black moment is where your readers are going to be weeping or worried. But this is also the place where things can go very wrong, because if your character's motivations aren't strong enough, or if the stakes are weak, the black moment can feel predictable, or worse, it can annoy readers. Now, I want to point out that the black moment doesn't have to be a hate-filled breakup, but it does need to hint at the end of a relationship. So, for example, in a friends to lovers, it could be that instead of confessing their love, they agree to go their separate ways. In the case of a romantic suspense, it could be that one person thinks the other person is dead. So this moment does need to suggest that everything is over and done, but how you do that can vary depending on the story you're writing. Okay, so we've made it to Act 3, which is where they now fight for love. The next plot beat is the aftermath or misery from the black moment. And initially, one or both of our characters are going to attempt to regain their past normal life, to go back to where things were before they let themselves fall in love. The problem, of course, is that they can't go back. The more they try, the more miserable they feel. Now, some authors like to rush through this moment, but I like to live in it a little bit. I mean, our characters are brokenhearted. Our readers should feel the same. Our next beat is the epiphany, or what I like to call aha. And this is where one or both of our characters realize their fears and inner conflicts are getting in their way, and they accept that they love the other person. And while your character should be growing and learning in little increments through the book, this is really where the growth takes place. In order for their past problems, the conflicts, and the uh-ohs not to cause problems in the future, the characters need to grow into new people. It's important to note that characters shouldn't have to give up their goals or give up something of themselves in order to have their happily ever after. But with that said, sometimes goals that are not met is actually a better solution. For example, in the Hating Game, and this is a slight spoiler, by the end of the book, one person is offered that single job that is available, but the other person ends up at a different company and is much happier for it. Now, when I read romances, they could be made or broken on the black moment and this next plot point, the grand gesture. Now, the grand gesture is when one character reaches out, putting it all on the line for the other person. Now, this beat is a little different from any earlier attempts in which the characters might have thought about having a relationship, but they totally played it safe. In this situation, they're completely vulnerable. And finally, we reach our happily ever after, or happily for now. In this scene, the other person also becomes vulnerable, and the couple come together with a new understanding and a new commitment to each other. Now we have a bonus beat, which is our epilogue. This is totally optional, but this scene shows the couple living in their new happiness, not just with each other, but with their new goals as well. Now, this is just a single beat sheet that you can use, but I want to remind you that you can adapt it or change it to fit with how you write, what makes sense, or what makes sense to your story. For example, I frequently move the HEA within reach to right before the black moment. I love the contrast of one or both of the characters getting ready to confess their love when everything goes wrong. The idea of plot outlines and plotting beat sheets is that they are a tool to help you organize your ideas and thoughts so that you can write your romance. And if that means you need to adapt it or change it, then that's what you should do. So there we have it, the Write with Heart romance beat sheet. If you have any questions about plotting a romance, or maybe you have some other tips, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. If you would like to read a text version of this video, you can do so at writewithheart.com, and I will have a link to that post down below where you can also download the Write with Heart romance beat sheet. If you would like to have more than just a beat sheet, please check out the Romance Author's Novel Organizer, which will take you from your kernel of romance idea all the way to marketing and selling your book. Along with the beat sheets, the Romance Author Novel Organizer has all sorts of checklists and planners and tips and everything you need to write and sell your romance. It is available in print through Amazon, or you can get a downloadable copy at Write with Heart. I will have links to both in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Until next time, it is Jenna Harte wishing you peace, love, and happily ever after.